You know, what a befitting theme you have chosen for the Silver Jubilee celebration. A woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. This is taken out from Proverbs, from the Holy Scriptures, and this is considered wisdom literature. And it is said that most of Proverbs was written by King Solomon, considered the richest, wisest man that ever lived, some 3,000 years ago. And the book of Proverbs, very interestingly, ends with a description of this woman. So reading down from verse down 10 onwards, we find out who this woman is. An amazing lady. If she was looking for a job in our time today, I thought she would have a very thick portfolio and have a hard time looking through. The people would have a hard time reading through and find it all totally incredible. I think we'd call her Wonder Woman. Remember that cartoon character, that lady who was capable of doing all things and doing it all at once? Let's take a look at her description. You see, she was very enterprising. She showed great business acumen. Verse 18 says, she sees that her trading is profitable. Besides that, she was a fine seamstress. In our time, we'll call her a tailor. Those days, I don't think they had sewing machines. And she turned this talent of hers into a business venture. The verses that describe her said she made linen garments, sashes, and supplied it to the merchants. She would also buy a field, consider land, buy a field, and with the savings that she had made, she would further invest something like into a vineyard. Those were the things they grew in their land those days. This woman worked hard, making sure her family, the servants, the whole household were fed and kept well clothed and warm in winter. She was not afraid of the future, one of the verses say, and she watched over the affairs of her household. But then as you read on, she was not totally self-centered, only about her family. No, she was also very concerned of what happened to others, something like a social worker. She opened her arms to the poor and extended her hands to the needy. And yet, this multitasking woman, as we would call her today, her priority was her family, her husband and children. She had time for them. She not only cared for their physical well-being, she worked on relationships within the family context. There are two, husband-wife relationship, parent and children in a family. Oh, it looks like she hit it off well with her husband. I'm sure that she had her bad days, but this verse tells what her husband thought of her. Her husband had full confidence in her and never had reasons to regret it. And the wife, verse 12 explains, she brought him good, not harm, all the days of her life. You know what psychologists, 3,000 years ago this happened. Today, in our time, you know what these learned psychologists tell us? They tell that husband-wife relationship is so important. They can influence, promote each other's groweth. Each has the capacity, husband, wife, each has the capacity to bring out the best in each other. And this was happening to this couple, the woman mentioned in Proverbs 31. Verse 31 reads, her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. The word city gate, need to explain in today's context. It was not just a passage or a doorway to something else, no, but it referred to a public meeting place where elders, civic leaders, and we would call the Ganguras and all these Naga council members, let's name them, they would all gather themselves there for meetings and discussion. I think you've heard the saying, which is kind of common, even in our time, that there's a woman behind every successful man. Well, obviously, her support and positive influence is evident. It was shown, it was seen in her husband's public dealing with people. She had the same impact on her children. And so verse 28 tells, her children arise and call her blessed. Oh, they had no embarrassment to tell, my mother is a blessing to me. We're so thankful that we have such a mother. And it's interesting. This Bible verse tells, even the husband, her husband also, and he praised her. So I reflected a little bit. This is 3,000 years ago, when women had no position. They were looked down, they were worse than animals, second-class citizen. And here we find the writer of Proverbs telling, this woman was something else. Her husband rose in public, praising his wife. And then, in verse 29, the next, the author of this chapter, or Proverbs, continues, he also joins in. And he says, sure, there are many other women who have done great things, but you surpass them all. So he declares, give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring praise at the city gate. Meaning her character and her work as a woman is so good, this calls for public honor. What a woman. How did she do it? What was her secret? We find out at the end of this long list of her excellent qualities is mentioned at the end another quality. Simply, she feared the Lord. The woman in Proverbs 31 excelled in her fear of the Lord. This was her secret that enabled her to live such a productive, satisfying life. The core belief deep down inside her, the driving force in her life, was this simple phrase, fear the Lord. And this fear of the Lord was so ingrained in her that influenced everything she did. You know, the term fear the Lord is kind of common, a very common Hebrew phrase that you find scattered all over the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 6:12-13 says, what does the Lord your God ask of you but to fear the Lord, to walk in all his ways, to love him and to serve the Lord with all your heart and with all your soul for your own good. Fearing the Lord is not just an emotional feeling. when we become guilty, when we are afraid, or when we are in great need. Being afraid of God, that's what we do when we are guilty. But in the Bible, fear of God refers to an attitude of the heart, to revere, to have deep respect. In other words, to be in awe of God for who He is. And this is amazing. The fear of the Lord can have a powerful impact in life. Examples, evidences of this is seen throughout, particularly Old Testament times. This was a very common phrase that they used. You see, it is a deep, growing conviction within us that can control our life and everything we do. Quickly, in one word, it is not only a mental assent, agreeing mentally, intellectually. It has to do with accepting in our heart, believing it and trusting it, and finally, it has to be expressed out in action, in our lifestyle, in the way we live, in the way we talk, in the way we do business. It is a growing conviction that controls our life and everything we do. In fact, it's not difficult to see that there is a close connection between fear of the Lord and the life that is, believe it or not, fulfilling and significant. Another way to express the fear of the Lord, some other writers, some other commentators will say, it's about having a right relationship with God. Simple words. It means saying yes to God, submitting to His ways, willing to obey and to follow Him. No, not my own way, but God's way. Because this is the way to life. This is the way to good. And finally, it is about really responding to God's love. You remember, always remember, God is love, not terror. You are so loved by God, we forget it. There's nothing more than this, that He desires we love Him in return and we serve Him with all our heart and soul. And for me, I think this is the best evidence that we truly fear God. This year, in July, I read about a big news in the Baptist World Alliance gathering. The recipient of the BWA 2023 Human Rights Award, and this gathering took place in Norway. She is a lady from Lebanon. Hamas, Israelites, Lebanon, not far away. She comes from that place. The short write-up that I read about her was very, very impressive, so I'd like to share this, and I think I'm sharing this to the right community here this afternoon. For 6 decades, she has been advancing the human rights of women and girls in Lebanon through social, economic, and educational initiatives. Her main contribution was during the 15-year civil war in Lebanon years ago. She was the president of YWCA, and she led this organization's very response to the conflict. You know what this lady did? She organized 800 volunteers and 9 associations to provide not just to the Christian, but also the Muslim citizens in the 8 regions of Lebanon. Then after that, she also initiated the development of the vocational training programs, because there were so many women now who became the heads of families. Their husbands were dead, killed, or in prison. Where would they get the livelihood for the family? The women became the heads of the family. So this lady organized having this vocational training so that they could learn a skill and provide for their family. She remained in Lebanon for that 15 years of civil war at great personal risk. While other organizations would move to safer places, she would say, no, I belong here. I will stay here. I need to help this woman. After the war in 1990, she also led another initiative called Come, Let Us Build. And this was to give more training to women and girls. That did not stop her. She began to work against, legislation to laws to eliminate discrimination against women. And she led nationwide campaigns to end violence against women. In 2004, she set up the first shelter home in Lebanon for abused women and children. Throughout her ministry, this lady sought to empower women to be full participants in all parts of society. This lady is a Christian, a devout believer. She is Mona Cowley, 85 years old. When she received this prestigious award, she said these words, "For me, this honor is a precious foreshadow of the future crown, the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. It's an uplifting moment and a fulfillment of the promise in Psalm 92, 12 to 14. The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree and shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. They shall bear fruit in old age to declare that the Lord is upright." Mona Cowley feared the Lord all her life. Indeed, a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. How about us this evening as we celebrate a milestone in thanksgiving and at the same time as we look forward to the future? And from what I hear, the younger generation, the daughters of the members of this society, of this club, will take over. What will be your driving force? The pioneers of this ladies' club, Dimapur district, are leaving a legacy to move on, for you to move on to the future. Sure enough, we see a lot of great skills, talents, charm, and beauty, but they are secondary to the main foundation, and that is the fear of the Lord. This is my prayer, and I hope the prayer of all who support Dimapur Ladies Club, that this Ladies Club will reach new heights as you move to another 25 years, blessing many, many people and bringing all glory to God. God bless the Ladies Club, Dimapur District. Amen.